Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and boy, am I excited. You know why? Because it's finally game week. After this long offseason, Texas Tech is set to kick off its 2021 season. And you know what? I think there's a little more There's more optimism surrounding the program than there has been in the last several off seasons. And it's a big game, too, to start off the season, to kick off the season. Texas Tech against former Southwest Conference rival Houston. But not just that, it's at NRG Stadium, where, of course, the Houston Texans play. They're in Houston, and the game's going to be on ESPN, 6 p.m. Saturday night. So, a lot riding on this season opening game that's just a day away now. So there's just a lot of juice, a lot of electricity in the air, so to speak. A lot going on, and we have some really good questions from Inside the Red Raider subscribers. So let's dive right into them. The first one comes from Texas Tech Austin, who says he thinks the importance of Wells having a 7+ win season, he said hopefully more, is off the charts for this year. He said he has two major reasons for it. He says, one, Tech needs to win as much as possible for realignment and TV issues. And two, he cannot imagine how difficult it would be to hire a new coaching staff without knowing, basically where Tech is in the whole realignment era or, situation, which makes a lot of sense. In terms of the first one of winning and the importance of winning this year for, realignment, I don't know. I keep going back and forth on how important that might or might not be. Obviously, it won't hurt, right? I think we all could agree with that. Like, it can't hurt if Tech has a good season. So, might as well go ahead and do it. And in terms of, keeping Wells and his staff intact and not having to reset right now and under this current climate with so many things in the air, I could not agree more on that. I think even taking it beyond that and agreeing with your point, Texas Tech Austin, I've been a big proponent of what they've done with the roster. I feel like they've greatly improved it. I feel like to fire Wells and bring in a new staff and totally blow that up and have to retool the roster again with a totally new philosophy and all that stuff, I think would be devastating to this program. I think it would just be, unless the next hire was just, you just hit a grand slam. Because, with the previous regime, there was a little to hang your hat on, in my opinion. And I was like, there was no doubt in my mind it was time to move on. The roster was just, the hole was being dug deeper and deeper. And this, I feel like you're digging your way out of the hole right now, in terms of the roster. Just the depth and the size and the talent and all that. I just feel like it's so much more improved that let's just see what they can do. So, where after last year I was like, man, maybe they should get rid of him already. And then now seeing what they've done this offseason, which really surprised me, I've kind of done a 180 just because if this guy can build this roster and improve it, let's let him keep doing it, At some point he has to win, but man, it had to be a really bad season, if they don't go to a bowl game, it's going to be hard to defend him. But it's hard for me to imagine that, again, this team not going to a bowl game considering its roster versus its schedule. So we'll have to see. I agree with you, though, with your premise. Absolutely. All right, Blake65 says, JJ, do you know if Cumbie will be on the sidelines or in the box upstairs? He says he remembers Cumbie, coaching the bowl game, and he was very animated on the sidelines. I think he was he acting head coach or no, he's acting offensive coordinator? Was it? I can't remember what he was. All the coaching turnover and Cumbie going back and forth. I can't remember what his role was in that bowl game. That seems like a lifetime ago now. But I do distinctly remember for the TCU games when he was with TCU, he was in the booth. So and that's what I've been told is that he's going to be in the booth. So that's what I expect. I remember on that tip game, I think was it 2015? Where it looked like Tech had TCU beat, but the ball was tipped, and in the back of the end zone, I can't remember who it was. The TCU running back caught it for a touchdown, and Tech lost. I remember Cumbie running through the press box with his arms raised in celebration in his TCU gear, screaming. So I'll never forget that. So I think he'll be in the box. From Syntax says he feels like this Houston game may be the most important opening games, or one of the most important opening games in Tech program history. It says a loss likely sinks the season, sinks home attendance, and could affect realignment. Is he overhyping it in his head? You know, I do think that it would sink attendance. I do think there's a possibility that it would sink the season. I get where you're going, and I tend to go with you on that. But my experience in saying such wide-ranging statements and being wrong in the past gives me pause, because life is crazy, right? I mean, what if, and I've seen things like this, just not necessarily with Tech, but with other teams where I said, okay, this happened, and that means this is what's going to happen. They ruined it, But what if Tech loses this game and then still ends up winning 8 games somehow miraculously? I don't know how that looks like. It's hard to imagine, but one of the great things about football and sports is that it is like, a soap opera, if you will, in that the unexpected will happen, just like in life, where you think you have a plan, you think you have it figured out, but just wait, bam, the totally unexpected happens. So while I see what you're saying, it could wreck the whole season, and that makes a lot of sense. I think the main thing, and then the realignment, we'll have to see. I mean, but for me, the main thing is like, all right, it's on a big stage. There's so many people that are like, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, and then there's people that's just guzzling the Kool-Aid, right? And I'm serving it up for you. I have been this offseason. But I think the majority of Tech fans, I'd probably say 60% of Tech fans right now are taking a wait and see. They're like, all right, they brought in this Tyler Shuck, they brought in some guys, yada yada, all right, I want to see it. Win some games. Is Wells going to pooch kick, when he shouldn't, or kick a field goal on second down? I understand that sentiment. Come on. Tech fans have been, our hearts have been ripped out of their chests and stomped and everything over the last several years in terms of football. So I completely understand that. I think really it shows a discerning mind, and not just willing to just accept the word of even people like me as gospel. They want to see it. They want to believe it. So losing to Houston, who is a good team but not a great team, would be devastating in that regard. People would be like, see, I told you, just a bunch of hype. They're really not that good. It would take a lot for this coaching staff and this team to win back, not all the fan base, but a big part of the fan base after this. So they need to win. And I think a convincing win, though, could go the other route. Where like, all right, these guys are pretty good. Then they start 3-0, go into the Big 12 opener against Texas and West Virginia on the road. If you could split one of those, split those two, man, then, I think the bandwagon starts to, get to going and starts filling up. And you know how Red Ritter Nation likes to show out for their team, man. We saw it in basketball, we see it in baseball, and we see it in football when they've been good. So I think they could really get some momentum going. This could be an exciting season. So, I don't think you're overhyping it. I may not agree on all the points, but it is a huge season opener. And I said this in several other places, on the radio, on TV, on these videos, but I'm shocked that a non-conference game versus a non-Power 5 opponent could have so much weight to it. But it does. That's where we find ourselves. So, big game, man. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm as nervous and excited after writing so much and talking so much about this team. Let's see what it really is, at least initially, against Houston on Saturday night. All right. Anonymous wants to know, what is this season's realistic best case scenario and worst case scenario? Well, I think realistically, to me, I'm seeing it between 5 and 8 games. Like, I would be shocked if they only won 4 games again. I really would. And you know what occurred to me? I was going to save this for the radio, but by the way, Rockin' Pregame on Rock 101.1 FM, KONE in Lubbock. We're back for a 6th season. We'll be previewing the game from 4 to 6, right up until kickoff. So you can check it out. 101.1, The Beard. You can stream it live too if you're not in Lubbock. or you won't listen to it necessarily on the radio. But what I was going to say is, it occurred to me, and this is the reason why it took me so. This is why I like to think that it took so long for it to occur to me, is because it's kind of a loser mentality, in that. So they have upgraded the roster. I mean, anybody who's been out there to practice and seen this team, the team is better talent-wise. I mean, there's no doubt. They're bigger, they're faster, they're deeper, all that. The quarterback position's been upgraded significantly. So there's no excuse not to win. I mean, there's no excuse to not improve in the win column. So if they don't, what does this say about the coaching staff? You know what I mean? Like, that's the scary thing. That's going to be my rock and reality check, which is what we lead off the show with every time. So, they have to win. And, that's why a 4-win season would be shocking to me. Really, a 5-win season would be shocking to me. But on the other end of the spectrum, anything over 8 would be very surprising to me. Just because then you start talking about, look, if you consider Oklahoma, who, you haven't beaten in forever, and is stacked again, that's probably a loss. The probability of winning that game is very low. And then Iowa State has just owned you in the Matt Campbell era, and this is one of his better teams, so on paper at least. So that's 2 losses, right? So you're down to 10 as your ceiling already. So just 1 from the rest of the games is hard to imagine. Possible? Sure. But really, realistically, in my mind, this team is a 5 to 8 win team. And really, I feel strongly about 7. And I've said this since spring. I still believe it. I think they're a 7-win team. Could they win 8? Yes, that would not surprise me. Could they slink down to 6? Sure. That would be disappointing, but I could see it. 5 would be the low end, and it would be very disappointing. But having covered Tech now, this will be my 9th consecutive season. Will I be shocked? I guess not. But 4, whew, man, 4 is hard to defend. All right, this is one of my favorite things. We do this a lot in season. It's great. Texan 44 wants to play the over-under game for the Houston game. All right, so over-under, Tyler Shuck, Texas Tech starting quarterback, throws for 350 passing yards. I'm going to go under. I think he throws for 300 but not 350 because I think they're going to run the ball a lot too with several backs. Team total rushing 170. Speaking of over, I think they go over 200. So I think they're going to put up over 500 yards, 300 passing, 200 rushing. Team total, Eric Ezukama 150 receiving yards. No, I'm going to go under. They're well aware of Eric Ezukama. They better be. And so I think I can see him getting over 100 yards, but not quite 150. I can see him getting 122, 130, and 2 touchdowns, but not over 150. Though, it wouldn't shock me if he did. It's easy. All right, J.J. Spartman, a half a touchdown. Ooh, you choose one of those big guys. Spartman, Jerand Bradley, the freshman who's 6'5", 6'6", Loic Fawanji. You just go down the list. Mason Tharp, the tight end. Chances are one of those guys are going to get a chance in the red zone in terms of a fade or some kind of lob or a post corner, something like that. So am I going to say it's Spartman? No, I'm going to say it's one of the other guys. So I'm going to say under. Though I think he's going to have a good season. All right, team total points 38. Over. I have Tech winning 42-28, so I'm over on that. Forced turnovers 1.5. That's really good. I'm going to go over. I think Tech forces 2 turnovers. Clayton Tune is an experienced quarterback. He's talented. He's also shown, though, that when pressured, he will force things. He will turn the ball over. Texas Tech has really, made that a major emphasis, which, honestly, though, every team is making that a major emphasis. But considering the opponent, the stage, first game of the season, I think Tech comes up with 2 turnovers, so I'm going over there. Great stuff. Please keep doing the over-under for these mailbags because I love it being a part of what we do with this feature here. All right, next question comes from DH Tech, which, by the way, welcome back. He's a long-time subscriber who wasn't here for a little bit, but he's come back at the start of the season. I just want to say I've always loved your gift game. Of course, you had that one, most people remember, it was famous, it went viral, Baker Mayfield gift story. It was actually on the free football board at one point. That was just brilliant. But anyways, one of my favorite posters, and I just want to say welcome back. He has a question. He says, what is Houston's strongest asset and or strategy to be deployed against the Red Raiders on Saturday? Well, they're experienced. I mentioned the quarterback Clayton Tune. He started almost 20 games. They have 2 really good corners. They have one of the best punt returners in the country. They're good overall team speed. So I think their defensive line is really good. David Anina is a guy who Texas Tech recruited really hard. This was the previous coaching staff, and he was the infamous guy. He really wanted to come to Tech. And I talked to him. I interviewed him so much through the recruiting process, and it was like he was going to announce it during his visit, his OV, and that was when Will Ferrar was stabbed by the other recruit in the neck, and his parents were like, "There's no way you're going. We're not leaving you here at this school. This is insane." So he went to Houston instead, and now he's a starting defensive end. He's up to almost 250 pounds. He's an explosive player. He's a good defensive end, and you hate to lose a guy like that, but obviously that wasn't meant to be. And he actually told me after, look, I was coming to Tech before that happened, and I didn't have an answer for my parents when they were saying like, "There's no way." So that was disappointing. But he's a good player. They have some good players on that defensive line, but. This is a good Houston team, not a great Houston team. If Tech doesn't play well, if they make a bunch of boneheaded mistakes, they'll get beat. If they play well, if they just lay the cards on the table, as I've said, with their talent, they're much bigger. They're like, I said the defensive line is good, and they are, and they're quick, and they're experienced. But the Tech's offensive line, like, they have a size advantage of like by 3 inches and almost 40 pounds per man. So they should be able to lean on them some. So we'll have to see. Houston has some weapons. They have some experience, but if Tech has their hands full with these guys, they're really gonna have their hands full with some of the Big 12 teams later this season. So I hope that answers your question. All right, next question comes from Tech Freak, who says, "What are the reasons not to go to the Pac-12?" Yeah, I think there are some. I think when you start looking at culture. And then I hate to say this, but the politics. I mean, everything's gotten so, with COVID, some of the social unrest we've experienced just as an American society here in the last year or so. Politics and sports and entertainment and education and everything has mixed. There is no, it used to be, where you think like sports of being some relief from all that, but I don't know if they could ever put it back in the box. I think this is the new reality of our society. So when you start looking at that, what is a good fit for Texas Tech? Which I don't know, I just saw something was posted on the board where Tech was the number 2 most conservative school in the country. So when you think of West Coast and California and Pac-12 and some of those schools, you don't really think conservative in terms of politics. And you look at the way the Pac-12, how different the Pac-12 and the Big 12 handled the COVID era. Tech was able to play all 10 games, while, the Pac-12, seemed like it was a disaster for a while. Let's just that's the nicest way I could say it. So I don't know how that would work out. And for Texas Tech, once they were actually in the Pac-12, how much clout would they have? If USC said something and Tech said something, aren't you just supporting like replacing a UT with a USC? And so it's, basically it's just literally an LA version of UT. And I don't know how that sounds to y'all. It doesn't. I don't think it sounds all that great to me, or at least doesn't sound like a good fit. That's not even judging whether someone's right or wrong or whatever. Just does it fit? And it sure doesn't seem like it. There's another question that kind of was piggybacking off this from, I think, Murdo Coalition, who wants to know basically, is it better to go to the Pac-12 or just extend the Big 12? And I think, it came out in the Atlantic and on CBS Sports that was it BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and Central Florida are like, the Big 12 is pretty close to offering. Like those 4 would accept an invite, and the Big 12 is pretty close to offering. And like this thing's like it's picking up steam. So you extend it to 12 teams. They replace Oklahoma and Texas. And what does that mean? What do I think of that? I think it's a stopgap, to be honest. Now, is it a stopgap for Tech to go to the Pac-12 at some point? I don't know about that. I think it's a stopgap in terms of, all right, if UT and OU, if they do decide to leave, you can keep the TV money flowing in through the current agreement, which is, I think, goes through, 2025. and then or up to 2025 anyways. And then also, if OU and UT bolt early before 2025, which I think most of us expect them to, then they'd have to pay what was like $80 million. Is a significant, exit fee. I mean, that's real money even for these big Power 5 schools. That's serious money. So it makes a lot of sense in that regard. I know a lot of people are going to feel unsatisfied with adding those 4 schools, but I just think you have to be practical in these times. And the Big 12 is literally fighting for its survival. And that makes them economically feasible for the time being so that they can ultimately find, a landing spot. Whether that's still a retooled Big 12, the SEC, the Pac-12, I don't know. We'll have to see. A lot, as we have seen in the last couple of years, a lot can change in 4 years. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I think it's a good idea in terms of as a stopgap. I mean, that makes sense. And honestly, that's what I expected to happen. So now, that doesn't change. Do I think Tech might not, now Tech's not going to end up in the Pac-12 or the SEC? No, no, not at all. That doesn't change at all. It just means they're being smart. They're handling what they have to right in front of them in terms of securing finances for like right now, basically, which makes a lot of sense to me. So, well, great round of questions as usual from y'all this week. And man, if you can't tell, I'm jacked up. I'm juiced up. I'm ready to go for this game. It's been a long time coming. It seems like a really long off season. I can't wait to see what happens between Texas Tech and Houston. So it'll be interesting to see what the energy is like next week, depending on the outcome of this game. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.